This is your host, Sophie, from Awakenings with Sophie, where we take a modern spin on healing old wounds. Every week, we have a guest on our show tell us what's going on in their life that they're struggling with, and then I give them coaching guidance on how they can work through this and heal it, in hopes that it may inspire somebody else out there to do the healing work and get the freedom that their soul is longing for. But before we get started, let's hear the magic medicine quote of the week. Our quote is from the wonderful Oprah. Your number one job is to get yourself right. You cannot do anything unless you know who you are, why you are here, and what that truly means. And I think that quote just speaks for itself. You know, a lot of our journey is about getting in better touch with who we are so that we can live the work that we came here to live, whether it's through our job, through our family, through our social interactions. Knowing who you are is a huge part of being who you are. I do this deep healing work with my clients, and we go through a 4-phase process: recognize, release, reprogram, and radiate. We need to recognize and identify the real issue before we can actually release the energy. But once we release it, we then reprogram this space. We can radiate the truth of our being. And now let's dive into our metaphorical healing hut as we welcome our guest. Without further ado, I would love to welcome our guest, Shaun. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Sophie.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Well, let's dive right in. So tell me what's going on.
I have been in outside sales my entire life, specific to the medical field. As a young guy, I started out in the field really just relying on an extemporaneous personality and product knowledge and just being an asset to potential clients and to clients. And I've always worked under a certain kind of manager that really I didn't see eye to eye with on some things. I have a very strong personality. So I've always said whenever I get the opportunity to be in this guy or girl's shoes that I wouldn't do some of the things they did. You know, it was a great learning experience for me because I saw some great things on how these guys manage me and the rest of our team. But I also saw what I didn't want to be to people that I would lead one day. So now I'm in that role, and I'm hitting some big obstacles where, one, I don't seem to be getting through to some of these younger guys, these millennials that are coming on board, and they don't maybe have the work ethic that I would like them to have, or they don't have time management the way I would like them to have. And I try. They say that smart people learn from their mistakes, but geniuses learn from the mistakes of others. So I've tried to, help them be successful in their career early on and learn from a lot of my mistakes. And so one, how do I become a better leader? How do I inspire these guys other than, just showing up, suiting up and being the asset they need me to be? But also, how do I not become their dad or the manager that I hated, right? Because we just both had strong personalities. We're sales guys, it's our job to handle objections and overcome these things. And, I've really just been struggling lately with getting through, but not being a parent to these younger guys.
It's interesting because when I picked the quote for today's episode, I really felt like this was going to be part of what we were going to be talking about.
Cool.
And if we go back to that, your number one job is to get yourself right.
Yeah.
So leadership really is an opportunity to make sure that you're leading your own self first. And then I think different things work for different people. So like one of the things I've heard people kind of throwing out there a lot is when you have a lot of millennials working for you or working with you or working however, there is a certain amount of emotional management that they are requiring that other generations didn't require.
Yeah.
And so if we look at that for a second, there's this space of emotional management, which means that we have to lead and hold a certain space for them to maybe talk to you on a deeper level, or maybe learn from you by observation. Like, oh, wow, how did Shaun handle somebody rejecting his proposal or coming at him? Wow, he remained in this, certain space. So leading by example, I think is huge.
Yeah.
But also like being a little bit more open to work with this generation, not as their dad.
Right.
But as a leader that understands their needs. Because that's what makes the best leader, right? That's what makes the best companies. Like if a company knows what your needs are and delivers on them, you're a happy customer.
True.
But if a company doesn't know your needs and then just tries to deliver all this stuff, it could miss the mark every time and you could be very unsatisfied.
Yeah. And I think that's where I'm at now, is kind of just missing that connection between me and some of these guys. And not necessarily trying to cram it down their throat in a way, but just kind of give them that buffet of service, of training, of knowledge, the stuff that I kind of missed out and had to do it all on my own. I just, I don't know if it's received well. How do I get that feedback, without, again, being their dad? I have 2 young kids, so I feel like I'm constantly at home saying, no, don't stop. And then I'm at work going, oh no, please stop.
So the one thing that's different about parenting, within parenting, there's a lot of commands.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. There's like, no is a full sentence.
Right.
There is go over there, do this, go get your pants on. There's a lot of commands, right? Yeah. But in leadership, I think effective leadership, there's inspiration.
Yeah.
And the way that you inspire, like I like to say, not motivate. Motivation is like having a cup of coffee, when inspiration is like igniting your internal fire from within. Right. And if you want to lead people to action, which is now we're talking about behavior modification. If you want to lead people to action, they need to be inspired.
Sure.
And if they are inspired, they will respond. So thinking of that just in your head, that commands are for kids and questions typically lead to answers, and answers lead to action. Now, this might seem a little bit like robotic at first.
Yeah.
When you're like, okay, well, let me figure out how to ask them a question that inspires a new answer that will eventually turn into action. But this is the space of investment. This is that little space that maybe the millennial needs. So even just taking a moment and saying, like, how are you doing today?
Yeah.
And then like hold the space.
Yeah.
Just so they have those 3 minutes to be like, well, I really didn't sleep that well last night.
It's just so crazy to me because, and even the generation before me and before that, like you said, there was just zero emotion. It was like you showed up early, you left late, you had a job to do, you go above and beyond. And then even once you had the greatest success of your career, the first thing that they would ask a management is, what's next? And then it's like, well, wait a minute, can I just enjoy this moment of success and really just embrace that? Let's talk about that for a minute, because I am inspired. It's kind of, I see it in a professional world of how, my grandfather was, how my father was and is, and then we've just, I feel like gotten this softer and softer. And if I have to spend 10 minutes talking to 9 guys in a sales meeting about their feelings, it's like, what are we really accomplishing here? And can we get, to the nitty gritty? Let's talk about metrics. Let's talk about pipeline. Let's talk about, I try to start our sales meetings off with success stories, right? Start off on a good note. I try to set a very formal agenda, keeps us under an hour. But how do I guess, manage my time well enough to talk about people's emotions?
Well, I think that there's certain places for certain things, right?
Okay.
And so if you have these sales meetings that have an agenda and have a certain amount of time, it's not necessarily a circle that you're opening up, but maybe you could start doing a monthly lunch.
Okay.
Like you would fit it in. And it's not necessarily talking about their feelings. It's about having a deeper connection.
Okay.
Because I feel like these millennials and the kids that are coming in, like your children, they have a softer heart.
Yeah.
We have, if we can take a little spiritual perspective real quick,
Sure.
we are going in to a very different space in this universe right now, or in our earth.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's gotten so spiritual?
Because our whole galaxy is moving.
Okay.
Right. And it always does. Like it's just in constant moving, but it is moving closer to the great central sun, which is a light source in the universe. Some will call that God. And so there is more light that is coming into our planet, which means that every being on this planet has this opportunity to see the density that they have been carrying around. Like, for instance, we are all born with this bowl of light. And then as we go through life, we get these pebbles of wounds put in our bowl.
Sure.
And so in our bowl that used to be all light, maybe all petals. So there's pebbles. So there's this density that now with this new light coming in, we're able to see and be like, holy crap, I don't need all those rocks in my light for my light to shine. So a lot of people are seeing their rocks, their density. And it is not comfortable. And a lot of this comes out through situations in your family, or having anger, rage, anxiety, frustration. Like, these are the frequencies of what is now available to us. They're being shown so that we can heal beyond those frequencies. So once we clear that density from our system, we can now hold more light, which means we can manifest better. It's like a higher technology. You know, it's like we're not with the iPhone 6 anymore. We now have the iPhone 11. And if you go back to the iPhone 6, you're like, man, this thing can't do that much.
Right.
Energetically, we're rapidly advancing like that as well.
Okay. So inspiration, that's one of the things I wrote down is, the difference between motivation and inspiration. Inspire me to be inspiring, Sophie. Where, I try to do the podcast. I try to do, weekly sales roles, demos. Try to give them, not stuff that's keeping their nose in a book, but how do I inspire my team, other than stuff that I'm already doing? You got anything?
Well, this is your intuitive space, because ultimately all this comes back to you having the answers inside of yourself.
Right. But that's also one of my things is when these guys fail, or they show up late, or, they're not closing deals or doing their job, it is a direct reflection on me as well. Right. So that's, when we were talking about earlier is, I feel if one of my guys fails, it is my failure as well. Right. I have to kind of own that responsibility that, these guys are under my management.
So I'm picking up, though, a little bit of a 150% frequency in that space. And I know that what that means, but for other people that are watching, basically you come full throttle. Yeah. Right. And you always have. And it can be that's great for businesses and for your work, but it leaves you very depleted by the end of the day. Sure. And I think you taking responsibility for their failure could be the minor tweak that we make right there. And this is an energetic tweak. It's not a mental tweak. So you have to get in your body to be able to do this kind of energetic tweak. But ultimately, their failure on their path may be the lesson that they need, that goes along with that quote that you said, that's going to teach them what they need to become. So their failure is really their growth opportunity. That's what you ultimately said at the beginning, right? And so if they fail, rather than taking that failure on for yourself, that's where you begin to coach and say, okay, how are we going to turn this into an opportunity to become more than we've ever known? Right. Because that's what every failure does. That's why I don't believe in failure. Okay. And every rejection, is the deal wasn't meant to be done anyways, because the deals that are meant to be done work.
It's true. But I me, and my response sure is already know what's coming, is that, as a sales guy, taking no for an answer doesn't just automatically shut me off and I can focus that energy somewhere else. I may put it, further down that pipeline and be able to not put as much time and energy into it, but every no gets me closer to a yes. I mean, that would be my response, right? And again, maybe not putting 110% into that one deal, but kind of just dialing back a little bit and giving it energy somewhere else.
See, and what you just said showed me that as a salesman, you have these inner mantras that play for you.
Yeah.
Right? Like you just said one. Mm-hmm. Every no makes me closer to a yes.
Sure.
And that's something that probably picks you up when you get a little down. Oh, and I'm sure you have probably about 10 of them that you don't really realize.
Right.
That you might want to tune into this next week and just kind of like find your little mantras. Because if you find that, and then you can start teaching your guys some of these skills so that you reduce the amount of time they spend in failure zone or rejection zone. Now you become a coach. When you become a coach, there's trust and respect that's formed. When you have trust and respect, now you have a greater chance to really move their behavior. Yeah.
And that's my thing is I don't want to be, I'd rather be the coach and the teacher rather than the manager and the guy who they unfortunately have to go sit with once a week to do these hour-long meetings. I tried to embrace that every morning, first thing, and every evening, last thing is, I get to go do this today. I get to go work in a place where we're helping people and, we're fixing these issues. But great question. And I've bounced back and forth is as a leader, is it better to be loved or is it better to be feared? What do you think, Sophie? As a leader, is it better to be feared or is it better to be loved?
What do you think I would say?
Loved, of course.
And why do you think I would say that?
Because you're a beaming ray of light, Sophie. You can't be feared. I don't think nobody can fear Sophie with the Froboda bombs. Nobody.
So love and fear are two opposing frequencies, or they're frequencies on the opposite ends of a scale. Sure. So you can't be both. And I believe fear is the absence of God.
Okay.
Because I believe that love is God.
Right.
Now, I tend to be a little bit more direct and I can be aggressive. But if I come from my space that's fear driven, that's aggressive and direct, people won't receive it.
Right.
They get defensive and they shut down. And that's how I lived the first 25 years of my life. Yeah. So I know it.
I can relate to that. Sure. Yeah. When I lose my patience, I'm just like, I feel like I'm barking, right? It's the assertiveness and it's those commands, right?
But I would say in terms of, it's not about being loved or being feared. Those are like the reverberal response from something deeper. And so what I would say is that we need to come back home to your heart.
Yeah.
And get you aligned with your truth. Because if your truth is, I am connected to the divine and I am here to do good work. Right. And I know that when I'm connected to the divine, I can do better work than when I'm not. And so if I start my day by living in a trust atmosphere that I am connected to the divine and I will do good, God, one extra O. Yeah. I will come from the frequency of love, which sometimes means that I draw boundaries. Because love is a frequency that is so beautiful and so powerful that sometimes it's a flat out no.
Right.
In love, not in fear. Because fear creates more fear.
True.
And then we just have battle and we're fighting a battle that's already been won. So what the heck are we really doing?
Yeah. Understood. So I asked you a question. Let's go back to, if you don't mind, inspiration. I try. Do you have any suggestions for inspiring some young guys that that need to be inspired?
You have to listen.
Yeah.
Because people will tell you who they are and what they need if you deeply listen. The problem is that most people are thinking.
Yeah.
When somebody else is talking. So they're actually not receiving. And I think that inspiration, a big part of being inspired is being heard.
Okay.
And so just even in if you guys cross each other in the hallway or you're texting or, you're on the phone, like just going into that zone of like, dude, I want to hear you.
Yeah.
I want to connect with you on a deeper level. I want to hear you. What's going on? How are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And not that you need to create a kumbaya circle for the rest of their career, but like having that ability in that space and maybe doing a monthly or a quarterly check-in with each person that goes deep. Like, tell me what's going on with you. I want to see your heart. And then I want to see if anything from my life story can actually help move you forward. And that care inspires people. If you connect with the heart frequency goes out like 3 feet when the head frequency goes out a foot. Like, it's so much, there's so much more power in here. This is where our entire being began, was in the heartbeat.
Yeah.
You know, that's that when that ends, we end, or this body ends, we go on. But, you know, so like listen and connect. And even just to open up the conversation with your higher self in the realm of managing or leading or coaching these people that have come into your path and saying, show me, like, higher self, show me what I need to know. Give me ideas. And then you start to commune with your higher frequencies. And then all of a sudden you start to see, whoa, there's a lot more than what meets the eye that is available to me at all times. If I just remember to keep my heart open, stay connected to the divine, and remember that I have all the answers I could possibly need inside.
I love it. So simple, Sophie. So simple. Rabota bomb right there, everybody. Boom.
Well, thank you, Shaun. Do you have any more questions?
I don't. I just want to say thank you for taking the time, Sophie. Our time together is always so priceless. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Now it's time for the crystallization. This is the space I hold so that the crystal kingdom can send us a message. The crystal of this episode is
Pyrite. Now, pyrite, which now comes in men's bracelets, is the stone of confidence. It increases power in the 3rd chakra, expands vitality, and gives you a boost for accomplishing challenging tasks. It helps you integrate high frequency energy into your physical body, which increases mental clarity and focus. It's a powerful stone to bring in more of your dynamic and increase your stamina and physical performance. It feeds the qualities of ambition, commitment, persistence, and completion. It enhances intelligence, logic, analysis, creativity, memory, and psychic development. This is a power stone, guys. Love it.
And now let's drop in for our Awaken question of the week.
Is actually about the 8th chakra, which we talked a little bit about with Shaun in opening up with his higher self. But the 8th chakra is called the soul star chakra. And this person asked, could you say a little bit more about the 8th chakra? What are some practices that I could use to connect with my soul star? And how does the 8th chakra influence the previous 7 chakras? So very quickly, guys, we have 7 chakras in our body, and then we have 5 higher chakras, and then 1 lower chakra called the Earth Star. We have many, many, many chakras, and there's different types of models where people will show the higher chakras within the 7 chakra system in the body, and then there's other models where they're above the head. Just to keep it really simple, I like to just show the 7 chakras in the body and then the 5 above the head. So the 8th chakra sits about 12 inches above the head. And this becomes a portal for you to connect your higher chakras with your lower chakras. One of the things that you can do to really begin to open that is you start with like just imagining a ball of light in your heart, and see that light begin to glow, and then allow that light to move up, cleansing your 5th, 6th, 7th, and then kind of blossoming into your 8th, and allowing it to be kind of like a fountain that then falls down around you and then comes back up through your feet into your 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th chakra. And you can run that torus field for as long as you like, but that will be a way that you're actually starting to ignite your energy and open up beyond just the 7th chakra. So that's what I would suggest as a little technique on opening the 8th chakra. I hope that answers your questions on our soul star chakra. And I thank you guys so much for being here with us today. That's all I have for you guys this week. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Awaken with Sophie and DM me any of your spiritual questions for the chance for them to be answered on our next episode. Use hashtag AwakenFam so we can see how you are awakening. Until next time, keep turning those obstacles into opportunities, my loves. Namaste.